Hi, I guess you know who I am. Well, here is a few stories that I'd like to share with you for the holiday season, so that we have great joy and great love and great peace. Remember, that's what this time of year is for. Even though we can't get together, let's be together in the spirit of love. The Little Tree. Once in the forest, there was this prickly tree. And it didn't like being prickly because nobody wanted to touch it. It looked at the other trees that during the fall, they were so beautiful. Their leaves changed. And so it said, I just wish I had leaves the color of gold and silver. Well, do you know, a little elf went by, and this little elf thought, oh, I will do something kind for this tree. This tree has always helped me. So the little elf wished it into being a gold and silver tree. Oh, look at how beautiful I am. I outshine those other trees. But you know, after a couple of days, a peddler came by and saw all the gold and silver and started plucking all the leaves off and said, oh, what a wonderful find, put it in his bag and headed back into town. Now he was no longer going to be a peddler, he's going to be a rich merchant. Now the tree was so upset. Oh, I really don't want to be a gold and silver tree anymore. No, if I could sparkle like glass, well, then I wouldn't have to worry. Nobody would want pieces of glass. So that elf, who was still nearby, well, it wished the tree into a tree of glass. And when the sun came up, and the sun set, that light sparkled off the tree, and that you couldn't miss the tree. It was so beautiful. But then the storm came, and first the wind, whoosh, whoosh, and the branches of the trees began to shake, and because they were glass, they began to break and fall down. So by the time the storm was over, all the parts of the tree was on the ground, broken. Oh, said the tree, I don't want to be glass anymore. So then the tree thought, what could I be? I want to be just beautiful green. Nobody minds green leaves. Green leaves are beautiful. And it's because I have these prickly things. Nobody wants to touch me. If I had beautiful green leaves, somebody would want to touch me. Oh, said the elf, all right, I can do it one more time, I'm sure. Are you sure? Said the elf. Yes, I'm sure. Green leaves would be wonderful. So the elf wished it again, and the tree turned into this beautiful green leaf tree and blended with the other trees. But you know, it was that time of year where goats are out in the field, and this goat saw how delicious looking those green leaves were and started to munch and eat all the leaves. And the tree said, oh no, even green leaves have their problems. And the tree understood. You know what? Sometimes you should just be happy being just the way you are. Oh, Mr. Elf, please, just give me back my prickly green leaves that nobody wants to touch because nobody bothers me and I get to be green all through the year. You know, that's wonderful. And at that moment, the elf wished the tree to be green and prickly just like it was. This next story is about believing. There was this unicorn that was traveling around, and well, what happened is a king, and he wasn't a very nice king, discovered that the unicorn was out there and was trying to catch it. And this unicorn would just get a little bit ahead, and the king would get closer with all its soldiers and everything. And so this poor unicorn was very, very, very tired, and it went into a cave. Now when it got into a cave, there was a troll in the cave. And the unicorn said, "Oh, please, please, can you help me? This king wants to keep me in a cage. I don't deserve to be in a cage. Oh, please help me." And the unicorn cried. Well, this poor troll felt very bad for the unicorn and said, I have a friend that might be able to help you. So you have to come with me. And so the unicorn followed the troll, and they started going farther and farther north. And it started to get whiter and whiter. And when they got to the palace, they got to the palace of the Snow Queen. And the Snow Queen said, "Oh, what a beautiful creature." "Yes," said the unicorn, "and I just want to be free. But you see, this king keeps trying to catch me, and because I'm white and where that kingdom is, everything is all these colors, so I stand out and I'm easily found, and I'm always running and running, but I want to live there." "Ah," said the Snow Queen, "I have an idea, but it means that part of the year you'll have to spend with me here, and part of the year you can spend in the kingdom that you'd like to live. Would you be okay with that?" "Oh, yes, you seem like a very nice person. I'd love to spend my time with you here as well as there." Okay, so the Snow Queen went back with the troll and with the unicorn. And the Snow Queen said, "Ah, for this time of year," and went whoosh. And everything became white. And the unicorn blended in, and you couldn't see because it was all white. "Ah," said the unicorn, "this will work wonderfully. And this will be here for some of the year?" "Yes, when spring comes, because everyone needs to grow things, but in winter, now they will have snow, and I promise the gift to snow every winter." And the Snow Queen said, "Also, I'm going to give you a little thing that should add while it is snowing." And the Snow Queen touched the unicorn's horn and then disappeared up north. And the troll went back into the cave, and the unicorn was out going around. And then the unicorn said, "I wonder what the Snow Queen did with my horn." And so it tapped it against a window, and frost came up, and it sparkled. And the unicorn said, "Oh, that's wonderful. So every year I will tap all those windows, and people will know that there is a unicorn out there." I hope you enjoyed that story. The Red Mitten. It's about a boy named Billy. Billy loved to play outside. He had a wonderful time whenever he was in the trees and out in nature. So as the season from summer grew into fall and then into winter, his grandma, well, she knit him a pair of red mittens. Now that was, she said, "You know, Billy, I want you to be able to find your mittens when it snows." And Billy was so excited, and he put them on, and he went out and played in the first snow. Well, weeks passed, and as most things go, sometimes there's warmer days and sometimes there's colder days. Well, there happened to be a bit more of a mild day. And because it was a bit more of a mild day, there wasn't any snow on the ground. And Billy, well, he put his mittens in his pocket and was climbing trees and doing all sorts of things. He didn't realize that one of his mittens had fallen to the ground. And because it fell to the ground, and he didn't notice until he got home, and by then it was pretty dark out, he knew he couldn't find it, especially because there was no snow around. Well, that night the snow began to fall. And, well, when it fell, animals noticed the red mitten. And the first animal to notice it, well, that was a little bunny. Hippity hoppity, hippity hoppity. And it wiggled its nose and it sniffed around the mitten and decided that would be a nice, snug place to go for the night. So it squished and squiggled and squirmed until it was inside. And then, well, it fell fast asleep. And yes, it's true, the bunny did snore. Well, along came a squirrel. And the squirrel saw the mitten, and the squirrel thought that would be a warm place. But when the squirrel tried to get into the mitten, it woke the bunny, and the bunny said, "Who are you?" And the squirrel said, "You know who I am. I'm Mr. Squirrel. I'm your friend." And so the bunny said, "Yes, you are." And the squirrel said, "Can I come in?" And the bunny said, "Oh, okay, but there's not much room." So the squirrel, well, it squished and squiggled and squirmed until it too was inside, and they were both next to each other. And soon they fell fast asleep. Though the squirrel didn't really like the fact that the bunny snored, but the bunny never admitted to snoring. Soon along came a fox. Yes, and now we all know foxes and bunnies and squirrels don't get along. But when the fox sniffed in and said, "Can I come in?" and they said, "No, you're a fox, you're gonna eat us." Do you know what that fox said? That fox said, "Well, excuse me, I'm a vegetarian and I don't eat meat." And so they believed the fox and they let the fox come inside because the fox promised not to eat them. And it squished and squiggled and squirmed. And you know, because that mitten was made out of wool, it gave a bit more. And so soon they were all fast asleep. But again, the fox and the squirrel noticed that the bunny snored. But they didn't say anything because they were nice and warm. Soon along came a skunk, that's right. Now when the skunk came along and poked its nose in, nobody said anything because you know what? They didn't want it to be stinky out. So they let the skunk come in, and the skunk went squish and squiggle and squirm. And you know, that skunk didn't stink up anything, and that mitten gave just a bit, and they all fell fast asleep. Now by this time, a lot of snow was coming down, so when a big, huge, burly bear came by, well, he said, "I'm coming in," because he wasn't very polite, and he didn't care, and nobody was going to argue with that bear, so he squished and squiggled and squirmed until he was inside too. And then they all fell fast asleep, though the bear did notice that the little bunny did snore. Time went by and it got darker and colder, and this little teeny tiny mouse, well, it was so cold, and it saw the big mitten and it thought, "Oh, plenty of room." And when it lifted its head underneath, well, you know what? Everybody said, "Go away, there's no room," except that bear. The bear said, "Of course there's room for a little teeny tiny mouse." And so the little teeny tiny mouse went squish and squiggle and squirm, and it was just fitting inside when its tail went swish and swish under that bear's nose. And that bear couldn't help itself. It went, "Huh, huh, huh, choo!" And that mitten went flying, and all the animals inside, well, they scattered because that mitten went up into a branch and was caught. The next day when Billy woke up, his grandma said, "Now hope you find that other mitten." "Oh, I'm sure I was. There was snow last night. I'm sure I can find that mitten." So out Billy went looking, and he was looking all over the ground because that's where he figured he must have dropped it. Well, you know what? It wasn't until a bird went by and went caw, caw, that he looked up and he noticed this red object in a tree. And he wondered, how did it get up in the tree? I don't remember being up in that tree. And so he climbed that tree, got his mitten, and came home. And well, they warmed up the mittens because it was wet. And do you know what though? When he put it on, it was bigger than the other mitten. And they never figured out why. But you and I know what happened. Story is about a little bird and how the evergreen tree helped it. Once there was trees everywhere, and there were animals everywhere, absolutely. And this little bird, well, it was in a storm and it broke its wing and it was going along and it asked the big oak tree, oak tree, could you protect me? Because I hurt my little wing and until I heal, I need protection. Oh, you are less than nothing. No, I won't protect you. Get away. So the little bird went farther along and found a big willow tree. Oh, willow tree, will you please help me? No, I have no time for that. I'm always dancing in the wind. Oh. And this went on and on. And the little bird was about to give up hope when this little tree was sitting there and said, I'm not very big, but climb up in my branches and I'll protect you the best I can. Now, eventually the little bird healed and flew away. But word got around of what the other trees had done to this little bird by not helping it out when they could. And the Creator looked and said, you know, only one of you was ever the type of tree you needed to be. So instead of being green all year round, which up until that point all trees were, I am going to make it so that when winter comes, your leaves will change color and fall to the ground, and it won't be until spring that your leaves will grow again, except for that little tree. That little tree shall be evergreen no matter what season, to remind everyone that kindness of heart should never be forgotten. And that's one of my favorite stories. This next story, well, I don't know that many people know. This is sort of my secret with Santa. You know, when Santa was a little boy, his name was Nicholas, and he likes to be called Saint Nick rather than Nicholas. But when he was a kid, well, they called him Nicholas, and Nicholas loved to be out in nature. And there was this forest that was supposed to be magical. And his mother always said, you be careful and you always be kind and considerate to whatever creature you find in that forest, because it could be magical and it's the right thing to do, but if you are unkind, that magical creature might do harm to you. Well, Nicholas had a big, generous heart, as we all know, right? So he went out in the forest and he played and he played. Well, one day he heard a noise and it said, help me, help me. But it was a little tiny voice. And so he was looking around. Where are you? Where are you? He was asking, where are you? And then he saw what he thought was a little elf. It was a teeny tiny elf, and it was stuck. Its clothing was stuck on a rock. Somehow it got its shirt under a rock and it couldn't lift it up. So Nick said, no problem. And he helped him lift up the rock. Well, that elf was so happy with Nicholas. He said, you know what? You're a kind young person. And so I'm going to do something for you. And he gave him this little red bag. It wasn't very big, not very big at all. It didn't look like it would hold much. But the elf said, whenever you need something and it's to give it to somebody else, this bag will have what you need. And he thought that was just great, because that who was Nicholas, who he was, he just thought everything was kindness and generosity out there. So he put the bag and he forgot about it. Later on, he was eating his sandwich that he had brought with him, because he liked to spend the whole day in the forest, and he had just finished it up when along came a squirrel. And he thought, oh, if I'd only known, I would have saved you a little piece of my sandwich so you could have something to eat. And the little squirrel looked up at him and he says, oh, I wish I had something to give you. And at that point, something in his pocket started, and he pulled it out, and it was this, but inside, well, he looked inside, there was an acorn for the squirrel. He knew he didn't have an acorn, and he thought this was just marvelous. So as time went on, he saw that whenever it was for somebody else, and it was usually for the animals of the forest to help them, or for his friends if they were needed something, he would look in his bag. But you know what? Over time, because he was helping so many people, his bag started to grow. It got bigger and bigger until it was the biggest bag ever. And that's why to this day, when you see Santa's bag on his sled, well, that's why it's so big. And that's why he never runs out of things to give people, because he's giving it to people and making them happy. And now you know and I know how it all started. It was the holiday time, and the animals of the forest always decorated this one tree every year. And every year, acorns were put on it, and pine cones were put on it, and all the things that people might have dropped were put on it to decorate it, to make it look beautiful. And everybody was happy to put their things on. But there was this little spider, and this little spider, well, it didn't know that it had anything to give, and it thought and it thought and it thought. Well, the night before Christmas, it had a brilliant idea. I will take my web and I will spin it. I will go up the tree and down the tree and up the tree and down the tree and up the tree and down the tree and up the tree. And so I will decorate it with my web. Now, I don't know if any of you seen big spiders' webs. Now, they're beautiful in the light if it catches it so. But a lot of times, well, they just look like cobwebs and we want to get rid of them. So when Santa came down and he saw what effort this little spider did to decorate this tree, and he knew that the other animals wouldn't appreciate it, well, he touched the side of his nose and he winked, and just then it all began to sparkle. And that's why we have tinsel today. This next story, well, I love this story because, well, it's about a little bird and another little bird. One day, this dove was sitting on a branch of a tree, and it began to snow. And as more snow was coming down, it started to light upon the branch, and it lit on all the little nooks and crannies until everything was covered in white. And the little dove shook itself and just sat there peacefully. Now along came another little bird and sat down beside it. And as it was sitting down, a little tiny snowflake, well, it landed just on the beak of the bird and then melted. And the dove said to the little bird, "What do you think snow weighs?" "Oh," said the little bird, "nothing, less than nothing, in fact." "Oh," said the dove, "I need to tell you a story." So as the two birds sat on that branch and the snow was continuing to fall, the dove said, "Once there was this tall, strong oak tree. And this tall, strong oak tree felt powerful. And when this bird lit on one of its big branches, the oak tree said, "You know, it's only because I have allowed you to be there that you can be there. You know, I'm very strong." And the little bird said, "But I'm not taking up much room." And the tree said, "That is true, and I will tolerate you." But the snowflake that was coming down heard this tree. And the snowflake said, "You should watch how you speak to other living creatures. You're not as strong as you think you are." "Oh, really? Coming from a little snowflake just like you?" "Yes, really," said the snowflake. "You see, I am a snowflake, but I'm more than a snowflake when there's more than one of me." And the branch said, the tree with the branch said, "I don't think that's going to be very strong at all." "Well, we'll wait and see. Let me land on your branch. Do you feel anything right now?" And the oak tree said, "Of course not. You're nothing. You're less than nothing." "Oh, really?" said the snowflake. "Well, let's wait and see. I'll call my brothers and sisters to me. Come, snowflakes, come, snowflakes." And one after the other, the snowflakes began to fall. And some of them managed to fall on the branch. Now the branch, over time, got so much snow that it began to creak and groan. And the snowflake said, "See, we are quite strong." "Oh, no, you're not," said the branch and the tree. "No, you're not." "Oh, come, little brothers, come, little sisters." And more snowflakes landed on the branch. Well, finally the branch began to bend, and because that big oak tree wouldn't admit that little things and little creatures working together, everyone working together can make a big difference, it cracked and broke. Now that little bird flew away, and that little bird was me, as the dove turned to the other bird, the sparrow. And I'm just here to remind you that if we work together, there's nothing we can't do. I hope these stories lightened your heart, brought a smile to your face, and that as you go into this holiday season, you remember we're all humanity and we all make a difference in our own way.